You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, my special guest, Kevin Surace. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Mr. Energetic Jim this morning. I love it.
I know. It's kind of when the camera hits, then the energy
lights
changes.
go on.
That's right.
Let's go.
Well, I got to tell you, I get up every morning at 4:30 and I go work out, and I normally sleep like a baby, but last night was not one of those nights, and I struggled through my workout, came home and had a little breakfast and took an hour nap. So I feel like I got up about an hour ago, which is really unusual for me. So that may be and I just had a bunch of coffee. So
are you wearing your ring or your watch to track your sleep?
No, I stopped doing that because I hate my score. But do you use one of those?
I've been using Apple Watch. My wife has an Aura ring, and it's very enlightening. And I'm trying different things. I went, can I drive more deep sleep? Can I drive more REM? Right, all of that stuff. And you try to biohack the whole thing. It turns out not much works other than don't drink close to bedtime. Don't go to bed too early because you're not tired enough. I mean, kind of all these things, right?
I got one hack for you. I've been going to a real badass hormone doctor, and she had me start doing progesterone before I go to bed. It's like the under the tongue thing. Yeah, in my REM sleep. I know it because I am sleeping better than I have, knock on wood, because of last night. But I'm 59 and I'm sleeping better than I did when I was in my 20s. So
interesting. Progesterone. Who would have thought, right? I do take magnesium because we don't always get enough magnesium, and magnesium is very helpful for people if they're not taking it. It's pretty amazing.
You know what? I'm glad you said that because I'm totally into all this stuff, by the way. If you saw my cabinet, I agree with the magnesium. And it's the right amount of magnesium, because when you get the right amount and you take it at the right time in the evening, it is a game changer. Then add this progesterone, and I'm telling you, I go to bed at 10 o'clock. I wake up at 4:30, and it's perfect.
Wow. Fantastic. So that's today's advice.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say, if you asked me at some point, what's the best advice you can give someone to have the best brain, the most active, the most open capability? Sleep. Like, you cannot beat sleep. And I know Alon and others say, I only need 2 hours a night. I have tried that. I did it in college, right? A few hours a night, this and that. And I've tried it during my work life as well. And I can tell you, I am not as sharp the next day. Period. Full stop. At any age, 2, 3, 4, even less than 5 hours of sleep. I'm sorry, your brain is just not as switched on.
Here's the other thing too, Kevin, is I believe 100% everybody's trying to get, I'm 59, I'll be 60 in June. And I had a goal of having abs by January 1st of this year. And I did, right? And I would tell you, I would have never gotten lean enough. I don't care what I ate, how I worked out, if I didn't sleep, because people have to realize that those cortisol levels that are increased when you don't sleep and everything else that keeps you fat. And I don't mean fat, but I mean like
no, it's true. It's true. The cortisol levels are killers, and us in business, when we're leaders, we tend to end up having high cortisol. Although I'm working, we could talk a little bit about my book, upcoming book, which is called The Joy Success Cycle, that really tries to drive that downward. So anyway, we have a lot to talk about, including AI today.
Yes. So let's dive in, because you know what? When I did my whole protocol, I used ChatGPT to analyze my protocol of my vitamins, my supplements, my hormones, to double check. What do you think of all this? When do I take it? What do I take with it? Like taking, certain things with vitamin C so it absorbs better. All of that. So let's where we should have
because Jim, this isn't Peter Attia's podcast, it's Jim Oliver's podcast, so we gotta move on, right?
That's right. So let's Kevin, do me a favor and introduce everybody to you, and then we're going to dive into AI, because it's one of my favorite things in my daily life right now.
Well, my goodness, I've been in the tech world as a tech leader for a long time. I have 94 worldwide patents. A lot of them are in artificial intelligence. I'm known as the father of voice AI and the AI virtual assistant. So anytime you use voice GPT or even Alexa or Siri, those all sprung from the work that was done in the late 90s and a slew of patents that came out of that work at a company called General Magic. So I've done an awful lot in my career, sometimes successful. Sometimes I get lucky and we're successful, sometimes not, but you have to keep trying. You have to get up. I like to certainly look at startups and entrepreneurship anyway in that area as something that you're going to try often, and once in a while you nail it. But you can't get up and do it once and go, oh, I wasn't successful. Most people aren't successful the first time, and most people aren't successful every time. But we only read about those who are. We read about, wow, it's his third startup and he's a third billionaire. I know that those are the ones that stand out in the press. What you didn't read about is the other 22 million employees of companies that all went under, or numbers like that, that weren't successful at all in their first, second, third, or fourth time. But the fifth time happened to be at the right place, or they were now the leader and just happened to get the right business plan at the right market timing, and they happen to be successful, right? So you don't read about all the other stories.
I totally agree, and I'm, when you said your book and you said the title, I want to, after we talk about AI, I want to talk about the book, because I'm really into exactly what you just said. Like my health journey is I'm like, I hit the ball, like I'm a golfer, so I hit the ball further than I've ever hit the ball. Right. I mean, I had a drive on Saturday, 322 yards.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Which like I'm getting stronger. And I would tell you that 10 years from now, when I'm 69, I'm going to be stronger than I am today. And my biological age is going to go down. So but I know that it's a journey. I know I'm going to make a lot of mistakes in the next 10 years to get there. Right? Because I'm going to try a lot of different things and try different workout techniques and sleep patterns and everything else. But it's, to your point, it's like that journey, right? It's like you're going to get setbacks. You're going to run into obstacles. And most people just quit. They're like, oh, yeah, I tried that. I tried real estate investing. Yeah, it didn't work for me. Bad timing. I tried to start a business. It just was bad, whatever, right? So talk about like what you've seen in, with your vast experience with startups. Is there one or two or three or whatever characteristics that people need to have and mindset?
So look, first of all, people always ask me, can you learn to become an entrepreneur if that's what you want to be, or were you born to be one? The truth is some people were just born to do that. They were born to take those risks and be okay with the losses. Be okay with the failures. And if you want to have a company that at the forefront is disruptive innovation, otherwise, why would you have it, right? If you're going to disruptively innovate one or more industries, you're taking a slew of risks, technology risks, market risks, people risks, you can't think you're going to be successful every time. The stats in the venture world have been over 50 years or so. When you get a little bit of friends and family money, your chance of success is only about 1 in 1,000. 1 in 1,000. When you finally get a little bit of seed money, a little bit more, and you've taken it beyond an idea, and you have a couple $100K or something like that. Now maybe it's 1 in 100. When you finally get venture money, it's 1 in 10 to have a big outcome. And so think about those odds. So when you were sitting at the bar or having a coffee or something, you're scribbling something on paper and you go, we have the best idea in the world. It may be, but at that moment in time, your chance of success is only about 1 in 1,000. And some of that you can impact. How hard you work, obviously, how you look at each task. We'll talk about the joy success thing in a minute, how you leverage AI today, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes, the statistics are this. Over 90% of the time, it comes down to market timing. By chance, by the time you've introduced your product, and by the time you've recycled that 2 or 3 times and you finally think you got the right business plan, is the market ready for what you have at that moment in time? Are they ready to accept that differentiated product? Are they ready to take it and run with it or not? And 90% of the time they're not ready. They're just not the market timing. Either you're too early, which I'm often too early. Like I invented the virtual assistant in the late 90s. I might have been 25 years early on that deal, right?
Yeah.
Or 30. And at the same time, I was, we and my team were very excited about breaking through those walls, right? People said you can't have a virtual assistant that you talk to that's an AI virtual assistant in the late 90s. I said, well, hang on. I need to build my own operations center. I need to invent hardware. I need to invent immense amounts of software. I'm going to spend $100 million doing it. But yes, it's a simple matter of programming. I can do it. And I can use even the AI that we had there, which were hidden Markov models at the time. We did not have generative AI like we do today. But still, we could have, Mary was her name. Mary could talk to you. We had 3 million users of Portico. And you could have an honest conversation, not as good as today because we didn't have as much technology, but quite amazing for the late 90s. So you got to try and keep trying. And hopefully you get the market timing so right that the thing is just ready to take off. If we had ChatGPT, if it had come out 20 years before, no one could have used it. There were no smartphones. There'd be almost no practical way to access it. The internet was not as broadly used until really the early 2000s, mid 2000s even. And so it would have been too early, even if they had invented it. No, academics would have accessed it, right?
Yeah.
So all the timing has to be right for all these things. And so patience is a great virtue. You mentioned real estate investing. We know that statistically, real estate is one of the, top 1, 2, or 3 methods of creating wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time, and it takes patience, and it takes being in the right areas at the right time and hanging on for a long time. But so just because you invested in some area and lost out and it went down doesn't mean that you've changed the entire statistics of the last 100 years. Right? We know what the statistics are. You had better have some real estate in your portfolio. Why? Because it always over 20 or 30 or 40 years makes a lot of money at a pretty darn low risk. And you have some government tax incentives and things that, you're basically it's growing tax-free, which is phenomenal, right? So don't give up. Don't give up. Other thing that you mentioned is you said, what's one of the top things that you've seen? This is the other one is we find people who have incredible solutions for which there is no problem.
Right.
This does not make a good company.
Yeah.
You have to find the pain point someone told me this once, don't just find a pain point for people who have money.
Yeah.
You can go out and try to solve world hunger, but the reason there is hunger is those people can't pay you for it. So that's the domain of a nonprofit or a government agency, right? It's not the domain of building a company. You need to build a company to sell people products who have money to pay you for those products or services, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, so you have to make it for businesses or people who have such a problem that they want to pay you to solve that problem. That's job one.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So what are you, like you mentioned the AI and like 25 years ago and that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. How would we have used ChatGPT back then? And what would have happened if that timing would have been like, that, right? And maybe it would have died off and nobody would have used it. But what I find really interesting is, and maybe it's just my Instagram, but I can't look at Instagram without seeing 20 reels on ChatGPT prompts and things like that. And the more that I've used it in our business, and I use it for things like, hey, what are the 100 shows that I should be a guest on their podcast? And things like that. But also I use it a ton because I'm horrible writer when it comes to grammar. I'll just say, hey, clean this up. And then sometimes it's like, no, that sounds like you cleaned it up too much. Nobody's ever going to believe that's from me. Or content. And it always says, do you want to create a Notion? So I had to figure out what Notion was, and all this stuff. So talk about like, how do you see AI today? And then maybe 5 years from now, and then further in the future, enhancing business, because I really believe, and I know you do, that it's going to enhance the way we do business.
So look, the first thing I do is tell people to stop playing and start doing.
Yeah.
When you start doing real work is when you figure out yourself what works for you. So you can learn all about prompting, but in the end, the more you give it, the better off you are. And we're talking about generative AI models, any of the transform models today, Gemini, GPT-4o, 4.1, 4.2, 4.5, whatever, right? Copilot, it doesn't really matter. Claude, they're all excellent. And the bottom line is, I don't go to it and say, write me 5 paragraphs on,
Yeah.
God knows what I'll get something. It's probably not wrong. It's not going to be maybe in my voice. I'm not going to feel that it's what I would have said. But if I sit down and write a few paragraphs and say, clean this up and make it a little bit longer and embellish it a bit with some examples, boom. Now, yes, over the course of the day, I could have gone and researched those examples. I would have Googled. So we had other tools to help us do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Grammarly. We had other tools, right? But this is just much faster.
Yeah.
And so when people say, well, it's a cheat. Well, I'm sorry. How long you been using Google? Well,
Right.
For 20 something years. Would you have Googled, tell me more about baby care? Tell me more about live streams and how they're done or whatever. Tell me more about Riverside compared to whatever. So of course you would have. But now I have a tool that's just faster. It gives me the answers. It doesn't point me to 20 websites. It gives me the answers that I need in a few seconds. And it can, what people don't realize is I can import huge documents. I can take a Medium article that I wrote. I can take podcasts. I can take all kinds of information, including entire novels, and put it in there, or entire writings that I have, right? I mean, blog posts or whatever, and say, clean this up, or what can I learn, or help me about, or help me expand, or help me. I often put in annual reports, which are 70 to 100 pages, and say, summarize this. What's important? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Boom. I could have read the entire annual report. I don't want to read the annual report. It'll take me 2 days to read it and understand it. I now have the Cliff Notes version, and that's all I actually needed. If I want more, I can ask it on page 41. Tell me what this chart means. Boom. Tell me what this Excel spreadsheet means. Boom. Analyze this picture that I've just uploaded. Well, it's a male and they're in his 30s. Or, this is amazing. Okay, so what I can tell you is stop playing and start doing real work. I do all of my work amplified, not just augmented, but amplified by GPT-4o or 401 or 402 or whatever one you're using. And that's visual, it's video, it is text, of course, it's ideation. I have 5 ideas on how I can approach this. Boom, 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 boom. Add 5 more. Boom. And some of them are, wow, I should have thought of that. And I would have thought of it on Wednesday, except that's too late. That project is due today, right?
Yeah.
Start doing real work. Stop playing around.
I love that, Kevin. I'm writing a book, my second book. It's called Ownership: The 5 Shifts That You Need to Make in your life. I believe everybody should run their personal life like a business, with a ledger, with everything, right?
Yeah.
And have that ownership mentality, not a consumer mentality. And so that's what the book is about. And in the book, I tell like a story. It's kind of an ongoing story of Jack and his wife, Shirley. And I did that in my 20s because I never ran into a Jack and Shirley. So I wanted it to be like, just somebody. And so this kind of
right.
It's like going back 40 years. And I said, hey, like, help me make this story more connecting to the audience better, more engaging, whatever. And like, what are some of the things that I could add? Like, and it did, right? And it came back with great ideas. I changed it. Then I put the whole transcript of the book in there. And I said, I'm trying to replace this book, which this person who wrote this book, it's 20 years old. What we use kind of in marketing to explain this concept called infinite banking concept, but I want it to be fresh and it needs to be updated and everything else. It compared and it said, consider adding these things to your book.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the other book that are the most important parts. just like things like that. I even uploaded my blood work. I do blood work every 90 days, just again for all this hormone and supplement stuff.
Yep.
And I said, hey, here's the last 4 blood tests. Anything that you suggest supplement wise, et cetera, et cetera. So then I'm kind of like you. I don't know if that's right or wrong. So I then took that to my nutritionist and I said, hey, what do you think of these suggestions? I didn't tell them it was from chat. And they were like, about 80% of what it said to do, the nutritionist agreed with. Now, I'm not saying the nutritionist is right and ChatGPT is wrong.
On the other 20%, the nutritionist or ChatGPT may be wrong. We don't know.
Right?
But you know what? It's okay because these are ideas. Look at it as an idea generator, right?
Yeah.
So you don't just take it at face value, but you confirmed 80% with your nutritionist. The other 20%, if it were me, I would do further research on and make your own decision and see, what does the literature really say, right? Because a lot of these nutraceuticals that we're all taking for health span now, there's varying, not only varying opinions, it's sort of varying case studies, and it depends on your human, your biology, right? Your physiology.
Yeah.
But look at what you're doing. You're doing real work that is really important. In fact, it might be the most important work you're doing in your life is trying to increase your health span.
Yeah.
And you're leveraging AI to help you increase your health span, and you should. And so it just tells you you're doing real work. And a lot of the listeners of this podcast, 90% of them are going to say, well, I played with it. As I said, stop. A week from now, I don't want to hear that you played with it. I want to hear that you took real situations you took emails and said, how do I respond to this customer? You took texts and said, how do I respond to my friend? You were going to have a party on the weekend. You say, how should I organize this party based on these people coming and what should we serve? Do real work, right? Real work at work, do real work at home. That's how you learn to be really good at it. You don't need to take classes. You just need experience. Yeah. Nothing beats experience, right?
I love how it learned from you because it'll say like I've put in because it's read my book and it's read both of my books and it knows kind of my first book. I had kind of my story in the book, my origin story. And so now it knows all of that. So then it'll say, if I ask it something in the future and I'll say in like, what are some of the things that I can do in this workshop that I'm doing for this podcast? And it'll tell, hey, start with your story, then to here, 5 minutes of this. I mean, it lays it all out and it'll say,
that's right.
Create slides for you.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, like you said, I would never do this project, but I'll do this project and let it do the rest of it. And I mean, I would never do it.
It's amplifying your brain. We all have one brain power, plus or minus a few IQ points, right? It's amplifying all of us to have like 1,000 IQ points. It's crazy. And of course, you're running a podcast. You no longer sit down and summarize the podcast.
Right.
That would be ridiculous. AI has been doing that now for the last couple of years. It transcribes it and summarizes it, and you can even have it make your social snippets and all that. Why would you ever do that yourself? We used to pay people to do that, right?
Yeah.
And we don't need to do that anymore. There's a machine that does this perfectly. Now, people will say, oh, it's taking away our humanity. It takes away this. It takes away that. Stop. I'm going to give you an example. We've had a machine called Excel that does perfect math since the late 80s.
Yep.
Nobody sits with a pencil and does long division, except in school to do it once to prove that you can do it. Other like fourth grade. Other than that, you would never do it. Why? We've had a machine that does it perfectly. So we solved math so long ago. Excel is a better mathematician than probably any mathematician I can run into. It will do it faster and 100% accurate, and it cannot make an error in its math. Period. Full stop. Like we closed the door and solved math. There's only really, you could argue math and English, right? Math and language. And so we solved math 30 to 40 years ago. Solved, done. We aren't less humans because of it. We just no longer are expected to do that task in our head. Very rarely. Why would we do it, right? So when we solved that, lots of people said, oh, it's the end of the human race. We're never going, it's the end of finance. It's the end. None of that came to pass. Yeah. It became a way to amplify your intelligence. You no longer had to be a mathematician because it does perfect math. And by the way, just a few hundred years before that, there was only one person in the village who did math. No one else even did it. You had to go to that person and say, I've got 5 apples and 14 carrots. How many pieces of vegetables do I have?
Yeah.
Because nobody even knew how to do any math. So think of how far we've come. And now we finally got language models.
Yeah.
They can look at our language and fix it and improve it and make it better. And I tell students, I just spoke at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, a couple days ago, which I graduated from my alma mater. And so I was speaking to a set of students there on AI, and I gave a 1-hour talk or so. But one of the things I say is, when you go out to get that job, there's going to be 2 kinds of students. One student goes in and says, hi, look, I want to tell you, I have not used generative AI at all. Some of those kids, they were cheating or they were using it for their things. But I have a pencil and I can type and I can write make it up. I can write blog posts and I'm really good at it. And I could probably pound out one every 2 days. Okay, great. Next person comes in. Hi, I use ChatGPT extensively. I used it all the way through school, even sometimes when they told me not to. I'm a freaking expert at it. I'll do 52 blog posts today.
Yeah.
Who gets hired?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who gets hired, right? So,
yeah.
This is true with every technology, from the wheel to Excel to desktop computers, to the internet. The experts in the latest technology are the ones who get all the jobs. And those who say, I don't want to use this stuff, they don't get any jobs, or they get laid off from their job or whatever. So, the train left the station. You want to be on that train. You want to be towards the front of the train. You don't want to see the caboose go by and go, I don't want anything to do with this technology. It's just doesn't end well for you. So as a leader in these companies, you want to lead your company and say, we are doing everything we can with generative AI. We're going to do it safely and thoughtfully, but I want you to use it 20 times a day in your job. And if you're not, we're failing.
I love that. It's funny. I had somebody on my team, and this is whatever number of months ago, maybe, like within the last year, when I really started using this. And I remember he would say, is that ChatGPT? And I would be like, who cares if it is? Like, the point is, but now he was like resisting. Now he's like, now I see his comments. I ran this through ChatGPT and they said, and it said this. And so now you're embracing it. So, like, to your point, embrace it or get left behind, because and all of the young people in their 20s, they're not Googling anything, right? It's, why would you Google something and then, like you said, have to sift through it to find out, is this just opinion? Is this sponsored? Is it whatever? When you go to ChatGPT and get the answer. And I'm super excited about learning anything. Like, if you want to learn anything, and again, I always tell people I'm going to be 60 in June, and I call 60 halfway. Now, I stole that from Dan Sullivan, but if you think, okay, with medicine and everything else, you could live to be 120, then you really need to keep your brain working is the number one thing, right? Your body, your brain. But I'll give you a funny thing about ChatGPT. I was playing golf a couple weeks ago with an anesthesiologist, and he typed into ChatGPT, hey, I have a patient that is this age, this weight, this is the procedure, blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking this, or do you have any other recommendations on treatment? And he said, Jim, in 10 seconds or less, I had what was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an anesthesiologist giving it like very specific parameters to say, hey, is this thing going to be wrong? And it wasn't wrong.
What's great about that is, I read all the time, doctors are going to be gone, this and that. No, they're not.
Yeah.
But doctors are highly overworked, and they miss so much because, you go to school, and let's say you're a doc and you went to school in the 80s, right? You're trying to remember whatever you can remember. The last real research paper, you read was probably when you were in school. You don't really have time to read a lot of them. And yet there's, 50 of them a day or something, right? So, or hundreds a day that are peer-reviewed papers. And so you can't be up on the latest thing. But these AI models are up to date. They can be up to date to the minute. And so you want the latest research, you want the latest outcomes, you want to look at how the latest meds are available to treat things that you couldn't even think of. By the way, you want to ask the right questions. We all know people who went to the doc for months and almost died because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with these people, and they're getting more tired and more this and more that. Turns out they have some worm from Nigeria or something, but the doc never asked them, hey, were you in sub-Saharan Africa? Or no, nobody asked them this, right? And even if you did, you wouldn't have known what to look for. And so, just say, here's the symptoms. What could it be? And they'll say, look, here's 20 questions to ask, right? What are the questions I should ask with someone with these symptoms? And of course, a doctor is very good at doing the stuff that comes into their office every day. But it's these edge cases that it's a human. We're not going to be good at it. We can't memorize literally hundreds of thousands of causes of these things, right? So I think that doctors are going to be the front end to this, but there's no question that it might be someday we walk into the doctor's office or at home, we put all our symptoms into AI. AI evaluates it and says, it starts asking us questions. We answer all the questions. Then we go to the doctor, and the doctor says, I've evaluated it's one of three things. Based on AI's recommendation, we're going to treat you for all three. Yeah. Because I'm going to make that decision. It's 2 are antibiotics and 1's this antiviral, and I think we're going to nip it in the bud either way, right? That's what's going to happen. You still need the doc to prescribe. You still need the doc to make the final decisions. You're going to want to talk to a human, but the doc's going to be amplified and way smarter because of AI rather than trying to remember what they learned in 1988.
And it's not a lot different than going in and getting a CT scan and then having the doctor review it afterwards, right? Like the doctor, you don't want the doctor coming in there and doing the CT scan and then the doctor looking at it's about efficiencies, right? The reason we have nurse practitioners and a physician's assistants is to make this more efficient because, look, doctors are in business, and doctors used to be their reimbursements were so high, like in Medicare and stuff, that they could make a lot of money not being very efficient. But now in today's world, they have to be more and more efficient. And AI can only make them more efficient.
That's right.
Only make them better on taking care of your health. And I have examples on that too that I won't go into right now. But I'm in Florida where the average age is deceased, right? And these doctors can
the average age is 140 and receiving Social Security benefits, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's like exactly, and it's like these doctors can get into just like Band-Aid. Yep, you're 80, you're gonna die. And it's just like, and it's not their fault because the pressures that have been put on them. But AI is only going to make them better at their job.
They have 8 minutes to see you, and we want them to be, when they walk in, we want them to be wickedly smart and not waste 7 of the minutes asking you questions. I hope all of that was done before they've reviewed it. They walk in, and that 8 minutes can probably be done in 3 minutes now. Here's what you probably have. Here's the 2 medications we'll put you on. We're going to review that in a week and see how you're doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Excellent questions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, that's why it's the best time to be alive. I mean, some people are so scared of AI, and it's going to take my job. It's going to do this. It's not going to take your job if you're the robot overlord, right? It's going to take your job if your competition is using it and you're not.
When I was a kid, robots were going to do that, right? Robots were going to take over all the human jobs and blah, 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 blah. And, but think about this. Like if we wanted to learn something back in the 80s, let's say you were in sales, you wanted to learn how to be better in sales. You would go take a Tom Hopkins seminar or a Brian Tracy seminar or something like that. You would go learn from somebody over a few days and sit there and listen to them in an uncomfortable chair. You try to remember all the crap that they taught you, which you never would. So you go back the next year and you'd learn it from them. You could do all of that right now in a matter of minutes, and you could review it. You could even tell it to set up a Notion project to remind you every day to learn a little bit more, or to remind yourself of whatever it is.
Well, you know how we're training, and including in my companies, we're training our salespeople. We put in all of the FAQs, all the sales playbook and everything into a sales AI trainer. Yeah. And someone comes up, it can be visual, it can be just chat, whatever, and plays customer. And so you're playing with an AI customer that is challenging the salesperson and slowly scoring them. And what we see is brand new salespeople come in, they get a score of like 10%. It's, they're all, I'm so good. No, you suck.
Yeah.
And literally within a week, they're at 90%. They're answering the questions right. They're following the sales playbook. They're asking the right discovery questions, qualification questions, depending on what sales course you took or taught or whatever. And it's a game changer. And I haven't taken any of my salespeople offline to train them. I have an AI that's training them, that costs $30 a month. I mean, this is incredible, right? Absolutely incredible.
It is incredible. I think I could talk about this all day, Kevin. The thing that I love too, what you just said, is when we have somebody interested in one of my companies called Create Tailwind, somebody's interested in learning about infinite banking, right? I've got more content on our community than anybody ever needs to know about infinite banking. But where you're at, are you a business owner, real estate investor, W-2 employee, doctor, whatever it is, like you're at wherever you are, like, that's the hard part to figure out. Like, what course should you take first? Then what questions do you have? And AI is helping us do all of that and suggesting what courses. But I'll tell you where I see salespeople in the companies that I own that are such failures at one thing: follow up. And so that eliminates that problem. Does it make it to where we don't need the salesperson? No, it doesn't eliminate that. But it does all the follow up. So the AI will take them through all the follow up, and then when they're ready to talk to a human, then AI lets you know, hey, they're ready for you, right? Like,
the stats are we all have salespeople and SDRs and inside sales and all of that reach out to a customer 2 or 3 times and then kind of give up. And I think, if you look at the numbers, you may have to, reach out to them in a variety of ways, more than 21 times before you get a response. Right. And that response will either be, go away, I'm never going to buy from you, or now's the time, I'm ready to talk, right?
Yeah.
But no human wants to do that 21 times and vary the output and all of that. Now, obviously, we've had kind of sales ticklers and simple sales things, but AI driving this now is pretty cool, because the best AI, if you've seen it, it'll go and look at your client or prospects LinkedIn. It'll grab some things from the LinkedIn and say, hey, I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw the following things. And the subject line will be, saw you were in marching band. I mean, it's like, wow, this is really good, because the more you personalize it, the more you get real one-to-one marketing, which is what we're after, right? Which is what humans do. The more people are likely to respond and likely to interact. And again, this is where AI comes in a big way. If your competitor is doing this and you are not, you lose.
I agree. All right. So I'm going to talk about your book.
Sure.
Because, tell us a little bit about your book, and because again, I think the thing I've learned about writing books is it comes from like an idea, it comes from a problem, or it comes from something that you've learned over the years. And so tell me a little bit about this book and why you wrote it, and what it's there. How is it helping people? Or going to help?
Yeah. So book isn't out yet, but almost. I'm done writing it, so it's in editing right now. and so the book is called The Joy Success Cycle, and we tie together joy and success, because I found that they're actually hooked together in an infinite loop. More joy equals more success equals more joy. Now, before your audience says, oh, that's trite, I've read 100 books on happiness, this is not that book. This is an actual guidebook on how you can create more joy moments in your life every day. And it starts with a simple exercise. Tomorrow when you get up, and Jim, you're going to do this.
Yep.
I want you to count every time you have an internal or external complaint.
Okay.
Complaint of any negative, right? So if you get up and say, oh, man, this really hurts because I worked on it, that's a complaint already. What we're going to find is that we don't vocalize all of our complaints during the day, but as humans, we vocalize a fair bit of them because we want other people to know that we don't like this thing, whatever it is. I don't like this task. I don't want to do that. Oh, the day is going to be hard. Oh, I don't really want to do this podcast today. Oh, I've got this customer problem. Oh, woe is me, right? And humans do that because our ancestors, this is why we're here, were very worried and concerned about just about everything, because mostly there were things that would eat them. Right? Yeah. They could run out of food, they could run out of water, and there were lions that could eat them. we don't have that problem today, most of us, right? We're not out living in that way. And so the book came out of people asking me, how is it that I look at every task from a point of joy as opposed to a point of pain or agony or complaint? And so you start to count your complaints. You're going to have, most people have 100 a day or more. And then I have a rule. This is a brain trick, right? One of the rules in the book, one of many, is starting the following day. So, tomorrow morning, the next morning, second morning, your whole goal is to have one complaint a day, internal or external, whether you said it to yourself or you said it out loud to someone else. So if you get up and you walk into the kitchen and you go, oh, I'm out of my favorite cereal, I can't believe it. You have now used up the one complaint you had for the day. So choose your one complaint wisely. Because if you use it on something stupid, you're not going to be able to use it on something that's important later. And so when you start limiting yourself to one complaint a day, I make lists of what I have to accomplish every day. So I have lists, and some things on the list last many days. They can't be done in a day or whatever, but they're on that list to make sure they get done. And so I look at each one and say, what's joyful about this? And sometimes the only joyful thing about that task is getting it done. Checking it off the list, right? And that's okay. But I'm going to find a way to look at every task with joy, because that's going to build up my, what we call positive quotient. And I won't have to dig myself out of a hole. I'm going to be up here. And when I'm up here, my opportunity for success is so large because my brain is open. It's not burdened with all of the angst I created for myself throughout the day, because I create that. I can look at doing this podcast with great joy, which I do. I think you do too. Yep. Or I can look at it with angst and anger, and it's a waste of my day, or whatever. You can take, the point is you control how you look at everything. And by limiting your complaints to one, you start to look at everything from the point of joy. And now your entire day is full of 28 joy moments, minor little things that keep your brain completely open to solve real problems for real people.
I love that, because I think that ties into, the gratitude journal and the gratitude principle and all of that. Because it's funny, that Rory McIlroy a couple of weeks ago won the Masters, right?
Yes, he did.
And they asked him, like, hey, in those times when you were struggling, when you're missing these short putts and you're chipping into the water, and he had 4 double bogeys, I think, which nobody's ever had 4 double bogeys in one, is he said, what kept you going? And he goes, well, in the back of my yardage book, I have these affirmations just to remind myself that, the positives. And he said, well, what'd they say? And he said, all the corny stuff that you've heard before. And basically, like, I love that, because he's saying it's not about that. It's about really believing that, reflecting that, and just reminding yourself, hey, I just chipped the ball in the water, and now I'm not in the lead anymore, but, I'm going to, whatever the affirmation was, right? He can, he's Rory McIlroy. He can get 5 birdies in a row. 2 strokes really going to be a big deal if he just gets hot, right? And just believes. So it's like that positive energy. And I tell people that everybody gets negative thoughts, but nobody, like not very many people have a system on how to get rid of those negative thoughts. So I love that.
It is a system, and it is a mental game. Like, we're trying to gamify it, right? We're trying to make it just part of the way we live. Like, you've created a situation for yourself where you get up at a certain time and you go work out, and that's your hour or two, whatever it is, for workout, and you do it every day, and that becomes a structured part of your day. Yeah. And people structure their days in different ways, but you start to say, I'm not allowed to complain about every little thing. And there's never been a book that said that, right? That says actually, and there's a reason for it. Why? More successful. And when you realize there's a reason for it, I'm going to be more successful. Well, then, of course, I want to do this. This is a pathway to success, and it's not hard. They're tiny, tiny little changes of stop complaining at everything. So there's a lot more. It's 120 pages. It's not 270 pages, which excites me greatly. It's 120. You can read it on an airplane when it comes out, and hopefully by the end of the year.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to go on your website, subscribe to keep. I'm sure there's somewhere on there you can keep me up to date on when the book's coming out. because follow-up is not or I'll have to ask ChatGPT, remind me when this book comes out.
Yes, that's true. You can set up agents now and it will remind you.
I love it. I love all that stuff, man. I'm so excited for the future. So, all right, Kevin, we've talked about a lot, and I appreciate all the things that you've shared. I'd ask you last couple of questions. The first question is, throughout all this experience and obviously all the success that you've had, and I love the innovation. I really love that you're on the cutting edge of that, because I can tell the enthusiasm that you have for that too. What's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
Oh, probably. I get so much advice and I listen to it always. And the reason is I can't learn anything by listening to myself. So you have to listen to other people. But probably the best advice that stuck with me my whole career is I was in audio video retail when I first started in sales. And those were days when people bought receivers and speakers and turntables and things like that. And CD players and DVD players. And so I was selling those things in computers. And we had someone come in and teach at the time. It was essentially the Dale Carnegie sales course, not the Dale Carnegie course, but the Dale Carnegie sales course, which 5 steps of the sale: open, qualification, conviction, objection, close. And I was already out of 250 salespeople, often in the top 10 or 20. And so I really thought a lot of myself. I was young, Well, this guy comes in and teaches us. And I pay very little attention to the course. And at the end, there's a final exam. You do the exam, and I fail. At work, I fail the exam. My boss probably should have fired me, but my boss, his name was Mike Rest, a very good guy. He called me in the office. He says, "I got your score. It's an F. You did terrible." I said, "Geez, I don't know." He says, "Here's the problem. You weren't paying attention because you think you're so good. You think you've got a mastery of this better than anyone else. But you could have gone from number 20 to number 1 in the company had you paid attention to the course, because it would have expanded your capabilities beyond what you have. Wouldn't take away anything you have. It would have added to them, right? Mm-hmm. Added new thing." So the next time they came around 6 months later, taught a whole new, I sat back in the course and I retook it. Not only did I get an A, I became the trainer of the store.
Wow.
Taking over that course, and then have used that actually and modified it right over my career. So I teach all of my teams. I take them through these steps of the sale and how you deal with objections and how you do discovery and qualification and why that's so important and all the other things, right? So that turned out to be amazing advice, because it's a little bit of the golfer's analogy, right? Rory's fantastic, but he still has a coach and a trainer, because he can't see some things that they can see from a different angle, right? And so we always need good advice, and we need people telling us, here's some additional ways to improve. We need books that say, here's some other tools you can add to your toolkit. Doesn't take any away. We're just adding more tools to the toolkit. So it was great advice at a young age that I wish I had even younger.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. All right, last question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book that you've read, what would that book be?
I always have a hard time sort of prioritizing books and say, oh, this one's the best or this one's the worst or this one's. But I refer in my book, I refer to another book, and I refer to it for a reason. It's Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. This is 25 years old or something, or 30 years old, almost 30 years old. What's interesting about that book is they tell you everything you need to know. I did read the book, but everything you need to know is on the cover. I don't need to read the book. Yeah. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. Yeah. And, again, as humans, we start to get, oh, this is really hard, or, oh, I don't like it, or, just all this stuff. And also, you spill some water on the floor, or you do something, or you break an egg, or you just go down the line of all the things we get mad at ourselves about. All of them. Oh, I screwed up this recipe. Does it really matter? On your deathbed, are you ever going to remember any of those things? They're all, other than having your kids, pretty much it's all small stuff, right? I mean, all of it. Even losing money on a real estate investment. When you have money that you're investing, you will make money in some investments and lose money in others. But en masse, hopefully it all works out. It's true in the stock market. It's why we play a lot of stocks at the same time. We have a portfolio, right? So don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all small stuff, just works throughout your entire life.
Which, by the way, that's great advice right there. Just the title of the book. And
title of the book. Yeah. What's funny about that book is it's like 270 pages, and I also used it as an example of why I don't want to pad my book, because publishers want you at over 250 pages, but I don't have 250 pages of things to say. I can say them succinctly. I don't need to pad it. So there's a great example of a book where if I just read the cover, I got all the meaning anyway, and I can change my life.
So you know what I like about what you just said about the book and your book and the length of the book is I'm a big Dan Sullivan strategic coach fan, and Dan's coming out with all these like little books that is like 7 chapters, 7 pages per chapter. I mean, and he says he wants you to be able to read it on the flight from Chicago to Toronto, which is like, right?
Yep.
And he's teaching you like really one thing.
Yep.
And so if you look at a book that's trying to teach you 50 things, people get bogged down, and it's kind of like what we talked about before is what 50 things do I remember? I'm not going to remember all 50 things. So how do I prioritize what I want to remember? If I'm reading a book to learn one thing and I really internalize that one thing and put it in action back to your system of take one day and count how many complaints you have, and then the next day that's a system. If I learn that to do that one thing.
Right. And we have 13 chapters. They're all short chapters. They're less than 10 pages each.
Yeah.
And it's like, learn this one thing. And then there's a worksheet at the end. So learn this one thing. It's easy to learn. I may give you one example, and then we're moving on. And the reason is, I think a lot of books, they pad things with lots of, you read this one thing, like don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And then you have 382 examples of small stuff. Actually, I got it. I know it's all small stuff now. It was a brilliant idea. I am done with this. Richard Carlson, the author, right? I'm done.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pad it. And so I didn't. And instead I just said, I want you to read this on the airplane, and you will have everything you need to change the success in your life. It's worked for me. People asked me how I did it. I started writing it down. It became a book. Just do this or don't. And so if you send back the book and say, well, I wish you would give me more examples where other people, I didn't do that. Take it or leave it. Here's my advice. I don't care if you use it, but I hope you do.
I love that. Bringing that all back to AI. What I love about putting in the ChatGPT, if somebody says, oh, there's this new book, and I'll say, okay, hey, what are the key principles of this book, whatever it is.
Right.
It's not so that I'm going to replace the book. It's for me to decide if I want to read the book.
Right.
And so then I go, oh, it's going to show me these 10 things. Then I think, okay, that's intriguing. I want to read the book. So then I'll order the book. Before I would just order the book, and then I'd go, oh, that's kind of a waste.
Right.
And so I could take things like that. And it's actually, again, what an incredible tool. And look, I love that your enthusiasm. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? Is it the website? Is it?
Yeah, the website, my keynote website, kevinsurace.com. I do 40 plus keynotes a year, very busy on the speaking circuit, both on the Joy Success Cycle and on AI. AI is very popular. Everyone wants to know what to do next and how it impacts their industry and how it impacts their life and their job. And when robots are coming over the next 5 years, we will have humanoid robots. We will interact with them. They will be in our homes shortly after that. Very exciting times. But kevinsurace.com, also LinkedIn. I will answer my DMs there. And I post every day on LinkedIn. So I have something nice to say and, something inspiring to say and some bit of learning, hopefully every day. And just follow me.
I'm going to go on there and follow you. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. And audience, hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did, because we went way over on time, because I could pick Kevin's brain about AI for the next 3 days, I think. But so Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
Absolutely. All right, audience, we're going to wrap this up like we do every show with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.